Spring in the Sierra. A great melt is underway. As drops trickle together down granite peaks, their force grows. This water is destined for a majestic place. Tahoe, the largest alpine lake in the Western Hemisphere and one of the clearest on Earth. Lake Tahoe's famous blue comes from water that's 99.994% pure. The rivers carry murky sediment, clouding lakes, but nature blessed Tahoe with an abundance of meadows and marshes. These slow down the water, trapping sediment, a perfect natural water filter. For millennia, the largest marsh in all the Sierra naturally filtered the largest tributary to the lake, the Upper Truckee River. But today, Lake Tahoe's filter is lost to development.
In the 60s, it was destroyed. The owner came in and started dredging out to make these lagoon areas.
Well, we're standing in a large housing development called the Tahoe Keys, built right in the middle of a former marsh.
There's 1,200 homes and 300 condominiums. Everybody in the Keys has a dock.
This is the biggest ecological disaster in California.
We could potentially lose the lake.
We're here because a homeowners association has been given permission to apply poison to Lake Tahoe.
Yes.
Yes. That sentence blows my mind a little bit.
Yes. As it should everyone.
Activist Toby Tyler's in a fervent debate over the solution, but everyone agrees on the problem.
It's a nursery for invasive weeds.
Decades ago, invasive plants got into the water, either from a boat or a carelessly dumped fish tank. Each summer, the stagnant canals warm and burst with aquatic weeds. It takes a fleet of harvester boats to keep the canals open.
These are big floating lawnmowers. They chop the top 4 feet of the plants up onto a conveyor belt.
Every year, they chop out enough weeds to fill 1,000 dumpsters, costing millions to the Tahoe Keys Property Owners Association and costing even more to Lake Tahoe's health.
The problem is these plants spread by fragment, and chopping them off with a harvester creates millions of fragments.
A curtain of bubbles at the mouth of the Keys is designed to knock fragments off the boats. Even so, some escape. Lake Tahoe's 22 miles long and 12 miles wide. The weeds have crossed it, causing new infestations in every direction, including iconic Emerald Bay. They do real harm. Invasive plants provide cover to invasive fish. Tahoe has populations of goldfish now and largemouth bass, which compete with and eat the native fish. Weeds also break down into nutrients, feeding toxic algae blooms, ruining the lakeshore.
Currently, the biggest threat to keeping Tahoe blue instead of it turning green is this development.
But it's all about the money. It's all about lakefront owners and their property rights.
It's always 10 degrees warmer right here than elsewhere, right? Because we get the sun and the open and the no trees. This place is magic.
Pete Wolcott and his wife moved to the Keys a few years ago.
Did you know you were moving into the biggest ecological disaster man has inflicted on Lake Tahoe?
Whoa, okay. Wow, no, we didn't frame it precisely that way when we put in our offer. Great point. We didn't know about the weeds.
Pete sits on the HOA board while the Tahoe Keys uses the first permit ever to allow herbicides in Lake Tahoe waters. Last spring, in a one-time test run, they applied 2 different chemicals, triclopyr and endothol.
We're using 50-year-old EPA-approved, California and federal EPA-approved products, and they're really not that dangerous.
Double barriers closed off the test lagoons until the chemicals dissipated to undetectable levels. But for triclopyr, that took the whole boating season.
It took until September 22nd, 15 weeks.
Pete thinks the standards were too strict. Opponents think the test should never have been allowed.
This was wrong. This was very wrong, this project.
Toby Tyler volunteers with the Sierra Club, which sued the Lahontan Water Board for issuing the herbicide permit. They argue the water board broke its own rules by failing to fully test non-chemical methods first. We never interviewed water board officials. They wouldn't agree to talk without knowing our questions in advance, citing the Sierra Club lawsuit.
When I've talked to the public about this, everyone says, what? What? They can't do that to Lake Tahoe.
But environmental groups are split. The League to Save Lake Tahoe, the group behind those blue bumper stickers, is for the herbicide test.
You have to be pragmatic about what's possible politically.
Jesse Patterson hears opponents calling for walling off the Keys from the lake or restoring its most stagnant parts back into wetlands. He just doesn't see it happening.
Property rights, they have some standing in this country. A little bit. There's over $2 billion in real estate here.
He's hoping the test finds a way to use herbicides differently in Lake Tahoe, to use chemicals once to knock weeds back and then keep them back without herbicides.
One application of the herbicide. Yeah, right.
Laurel Ames has lived at the lake since 1947. She ran the League to Save Lake Tahoe back when the Tahoe Keys was developed.
To put herbicides in this lake just upsets me so much.
To her, the idea of using chemicals is the same rash thinking that allowed the Keys to be built in the first place.
And it was a marsh, but the developer called it a swamp.
That swamp was Lake Tahoe's lungs.
Cancer is a great analogy for something like this.
Lake Tahoe has a sort of lung cancer. The debate now, do we treat it with chemo? Behind that question, we've got a deeper one.
We are loving the lake to death.
Nature gave us this jewel of the Sierra. How long can we keep it?